Hughes and Company podcast. Today is 26 March 2023. We're privileged to have Gennady Kurvoy with us today. He's going to share some information about 15-minute cities. Some people have heard of it, I imagine, by now. Some people have not. Anyway, Gennady, thank you for being here. Go ahead and tell us what you've brought us.
Thank you for having me again. This topic of healthy homes and cities and healthy cities is my main thing as a realtor. So I thought like this time focusing on what's happening outside the home, like in the location, the neighborhood. Again, as a realtor, location matters, or we're helping our clients. So this leads to subjects of market forces affecting real estate, but also government and policy forces affecting real estate. So 15-minute cities is a big part of it.
And you're going to tell us about this in 15 minutes.
I will do it in less than 15 minutes. Yeah, we can do that as well. I mean, a lot of people have probably heard of it already. Sometimes they call it 20-minute cities or 25-minute cities. It's a concept that's kind of been around for about 30 years.
Yeah. Does it depend on the demographic? Like for young people, it's 15-minute cities. For the elderly, it's
I think it depends on where. Like
25?
In some European places, they call it 20 minutes, or depending which organization is pushing it, right? But generally, like the global community, like World Health Organization, and a lot of these sustainable development type of think tanks have been pushing this idea. Yeah. To essentially make cities more compact, where people can have access to everything that they need within a 15-minute walk or bike ride or public transportation. So their food, their education, their health, their recreation, all those aspects of it. So it's a new thing, but not really a new thing. It's just now more recently with all the COVID stuff that happened, it's kind of been thrust more into the policy making world, because people saw how the environment can be affected by how people change their behavior, right? So in terms of health, like how's it affecting the city? So we're in Vancouver, right? So I'm looking like what's happening in Vancouver. Vancouver's been on this train for at least 10 years. Back in 2015, they started something called the Vancouver Healthy City Strategy. They had kind of a 10-year goal from 2015 to 2025. Those 13 goals that they had to do with various topics, not just health, but like sustainability, environmental stuff, mobility, equality, access to social services, that kind of stuff. I'm going to focus on like the part that's related to real estate. So one of the goals was number 12. That one was specifically an environment to thrive in. So what Vancouver was focusing on there is to make the city more walkable, like kind of leading towards that 15-minute city concept. And also as they're designing homes and public and private property, to be conscious of toxins and environmental pollution and stuff. So I'll dig into that, but that's the general.
All right. Well, it's hard to argue against any of those things, so go ahead.
Well, that's an interesting point. It all sounds good, right? On the surface, it all, like, who doesn't want a clean city, right? Who doesn't want less pollution and to make things more accessible, especially for people who have mobility issues or from financial challenges, right? It all makes sense in that sense. So that's why it's been around for a while, and it's kind of getting this sort of political influence. That's also why the market has been responding to it. Yes. Like when I say like the free market, Vancouver already has kind of been ahead of the curve in a lot of ways in that sense. Like, I'm not sure if you know, like Vancouver, you've probably heard of like a walkability score. Like when you sell real estate, they usually they measure the property's walkability score.
Well, I'll say yes.
Okay. Yeah. You probably heard it. You can kind of intuitively know what that means, right? Yes. So out of 100, so they, on this official thing, anything over 78 is considered very walkable, meaning like you can get to everything you need within a few minutes. Right. Right. So it's already kind of speaking to that 15-minute city concept. Yes. Vancouver already is the most walkable city in Canada.
Really?
Did you know that?
Well, I would guess
Yeah.
if I was asked.
So
but
now you were
no.
not surprised. So
No.
Vancouver as a whole
Yeah.
has a walkability score of 79.
That's
Right,
excellent.
so that's the highest of all major Canadian cities. It kind of makes sense, we're more environmentally conscious. It's a newer city, so it was kind of more thought put into how it was designed.
Well, it has a long tradition of walkability,
Yeah.
and with Stanley Park and the Stanley Park seawall, which
Mm-hmm.
goes back to, I'm guessing now, I think it was the 1920s they started that.
Right.
Yeah.
And since then, even as the neighborhoods were developing,
Yes.
Kitsilano, Fairview, Broadway, Mount Pleasant, a lot of the walkability concept was kept in mind.
Right.
Like if you take a look at, and I'll share it with you guys, we can probably put it on screen.
Sure.
If you look at a map of the neighborhoods of all of Vancouver, most of them are in the high 70s or 80s. So basically, like West 41st Street
Yeah.
in central Vancouver.
Right.
North of that, pretty much every neighborhood has a high walkability score, 78, 80, 85, that kind of thing.
Right.
North of West 41st,
Right.
they're in the 60s, like South Vancouver, closer to Marine Drive,
Right.
but still, that's a relatively high number,
Yes.
right? So overall, Vancouver is already very walkable, right? So
Yes.
they're trying to make their goal, part of this Vancouver Healthy City Strategy,
Yes.
is to make every neighborhood
Yes.
in Vancouver
Yes.
79 walkability or higher, right?
Good plan.
So that's, sounds good. So, and you can see a lot of communities have already been built that way.
Yes.
Like look at these master planned communities
Yes.
that are designed, to be in a location like anywhere in Vancouver, like by UBC or like along Cambie, where we are right now. They build the community so you have like a townhouse, condo, or something where everything is close by. The
Right.
commercial services, the medical clinics, public transportation, like SkyTrain and all that.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, that it's kind of already been market driven
Yeah.
in that sense. So the developers are building it because they know people are going to buy it,
Yeah.
right? What's changed now, or what's an added layer, is now because of what's happened with COVID and everyone being more conscious now of health, and government saying, okay, now we got to do something more, right? They've constantly said we have to take advantage of this special time, right, to improve the environment. So as a realtor, like, what does that mean? Like that's what they talk, like retrofitting homes to be more, sustainable, but also building the communities in a way that there's less dependence on cars, right?
Right.
And less dependence. So it's a big topic. Like I don't know, where do you want to take it?
Well, I'll just add to this that there are too many cars, period.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
been
Yeah.
a problem for a long time.
For sure.
And it's just getting worse.
Yeah.
But the walkable city concept, in terms of all of your needs being accessible within a 15-minute walk of your home, do you see any specific areas or locations where that's where in the Vancouver Lower Mainland area where that actually shows itself?
Well, Vancouver's taken. It's easier to do that in a city,
Right.
more than like say like
Of
a
course.
suburb or
Yeah,
a more
yeah,
rural
yeah,
area. And frankly, that's like, why do people live in cities in the first
Exactly.
place?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It is.
Naturally, as our ancestors, we're not naturally designed to live in cities,
Yeah.
right? But over the past couple of centuries, we've migrated to cities. Why? Because there's economic reasons and convenience reasons and stuff like that, right? So to implement this model, this 15-minute city model, and push it into, let's say, suburbs or more rural areas,
Yeah.
it's obviously going to be harder to design every neighborhood in a way where everything is within 15 minutes,
Yeah.
right? So, but that's their intention. Like cities, even where I live right now in Maple Ridge,
Yeah.
it's a smaller town, population like about 85, 90,000 people. They've already signed up to this idea. So it's all kind of like a trickle down. When I say signed up for it, I mean like they're going to get funding for it.
Right.
Like there's the World Health Organization and then government institutions that kind of are promoting this, and they're trickling down funding
Right.
towards cities and municipalities and even developers and stuff to build this kind of community.
Right.
Right. So I find it interesting because, again, it's that I come from a government background also. So,
Yes.
you know, I'm kind of the mindset like the government shouldn't be involved in the market forces of
Yes.
things. They're just there to make sure people play by the rules and, you know, no one gets hurt kind of thing.
Yes.
But more and more it seems like they're trying to override or get involved in the market of real estate,
Right.
how homes are built.
Yes.
And it's like a double-edged sword because, like you said, like who doesn't want less pollution,
Yes.
right? But then the bigger question I'm thinking, so how is it driven by the market, the free market? In other words, people's desires?
Yes.
Or is it some other organizations who have different goals in mind, obviously a lot of financial and political type of goals,
Right.
telling us this is how you're going to be healthy, this is how you have to, where you have to live, and if you don't, you're against the environment or something like that. It kind of can go that way as well.
Right.
So I'm seeing it more and more now, like I said, with the COVID, like there all these like think tanks, right? Like
Right.
these sustainable development type of organizations who are writing reports and research to government institutions saying this is why we need to design cities to be more compact,
Yes.
right? Squish more people into a less area,
Yeah.
but still keep them safe for the next pandemic, right? Because that one is coming, right? They keep
Yeah.
advertising for the next pandemic.
Well, that's part of history.
That's
isn't
part of
it?
history,
And
right?
Just
Yeah.
read your history.
Yeah. So they want to say that it's still safer to be in city, or it's no more dangerous to be in a city than out in the country, based on these new, retrofitting of homes
Well.
and property. Like they're trying to sell that message. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
And-
they can keep trying.
and when they're, again, from the government point of view, it's like, okay, there's one thing to try to sell a message, saying
Right.
this product is good, do it.
Right.
There's another one saying, look, you're not going to get funding unless you do it.
Yeah.
That's a different kind of way
Yeah.
of selling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we all agree with the idea of a clean environment, physical exercise.
Mhm.
It's hard to argue against that.
Of course, yeah. You don't need
And,
science really for that.
Less cluttered lifestyle,
yeah.
including possibly fewer cars and motor vehicles.
Mhm.
You did, before we got on camera, mention something about London and their 15-minute or their walkable
Right,
cities,
yeah.
where you've heard, perhaps for the purpose of this broadcast, that we'll put it more in the rumor stage, but
Yeah, okay.
that there is some restriction on movement. I don't know if that's vehicular movement or actual people having to go through some process in order to leave their 15-minute environment.
Yeah, it is. So that basically means like this is not just theory, right? Like in some places they've already implemented this concept. London and in Spain and Australia, they've already started creating these cities or districts, they want to call it. I've heard in Canada, Edmonton is the most furthest along
Right.
in this. But since you mentioned the London, Oxford one, like basically like they've already established these zones where everything is accessible within 15 minutes.
Right.
But they've also put in some physical restrictions to limit the mobility of cars, like going in certain streets at certain times, but also going in and out of the district.
Right.
So again, disclaimer: I haven't physically been there. I don't know anybody personally there, but what I've heard reports that people like it's not something the citizens were consulted with.
Right.
It was just like put upon them, and they're saying we don't like it.
Right.
So that's kind of speaks to what I was talking about, where like is it market driven,
Right.
meaning that people want it,
Yes.
the people are buying it, or is it some government or external force putting it upon them, right?
Right. Well, the issue that I'm pointing to, and that we'll deal with in a more researched way in a future broadcast, is whether there's any restriction on autonomy and freedom of movement.
Yeah.
That is.
So that's a good question.
That is unacceptable.
That is unacceptable because freedom of movement is a fundamental human right. Right? Just like freedom to choose how to take care of your health.
Yeah.
Or choose where you want to live. These are all fundamental. It's got nothing to do with state, government policy. So what they're saying right now officially, okay, this is not like propaganda or conjecture.
Right.
What they're saying right now is like that they're not planning to limit mobility, right? They want to encourage people to stay in their area, make everything accessible.
Right.
But if you need to go outside that area, you're going to need a reason, right? Or you're going to have to pay something to, offset your carbon footprint or those kind of terms. In other words, ask for permission, right? And get an approval or pay to do it.
That's also called a prison.
I would use that word.
If that's already being implemented, but we'll advise our viewership shortly as to whether that's a current reality or just a sinister.
It's just one of those things where, like, step by step, you see how things are going, right?
Yeah.
And if the infrastructure is in place, where they have these, physical barriers or technology surveillance devices that track your mobility.
For sure.
If that's already in place, and then some nefarious, government or actors get control over that, or just some really greedy corporate interests.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you just read your history, like you said. It's not going to be the first time that something that was meant for good is turned into something bad. Right.
Okay, well, that's good. Great topic.
Yeah.
We'll see what's happening. We'll have more about what's literally happening in Vancouver.
I'm just scratching the surface on this.
And we'll come back.
Because the healthy home thing, as a realtor, I need to know, like, say, what affects the health of people's homes. So I'm discovering more as I go along.
Okay.
So I'll keep you posted, especially like the legal changes that are happening. Like, I know they're changing. Like locally, they're changing bylaws to essentially start to consider environment more in how real estate is owned and used.
Okay.
Right? So that's a huge topic.
Let's just talk about, as we always do, for a minute or two, real estate generally in the British Columbia Lower Mainland or British Columbia generally. What's happening? It's the 26th of March today, isn't it?
Yeah, 26th
of March, 2023.
Yeah.
What's going on?
In a nutshell, so we have entered the spring market.
Right.
Things are picking up again, so that shock of all the interest rates going up and everyone freaking out and prices plummeting, that's cooled off.
Yeah.
Things have plateaued. There's still low inventory, so that drives the demand. So even with the higher interest rates, if there's lower inventory, there's still higher demand. So prices have kind of bottomed out. Yeah. So people who are buying, we've hit the bottom.
Okay.
Don't wait.
Yeah.
Buy.
Okay.
For people who are selling, like, now is a good time to think of, if you need to sell, things are going to start picking up. But to be mindful that so is every other seller thinking that.
Yeah.
So while the competition is less, while the inventory is low, now is still a good time to sell for higher price.
Right. So the markets appears, for the moment, for today anyway,
to be
to be stable.
To be stable, yeah. And interest rates, just talking to various mortgage brokers, the consensus seems to be the rates will hold for at least until the end of this year. Yeah. So by December, they might start to decrease again.
Right.
But for now, there's no more sign of any more increases, which thankfully, like I said, I think we've really pushed the strain on the economy, people's affordability and desire to buy. It's been pushed to the edge. So any more interest rate hikes would be really bad.
Well, we're very much under the influence of Canada's southern neighbor, the United States, and they've just suffered a series of bank failures and subsequent rescues, it seems. But that's a warning to them to take it easy with pushing up their interest rates.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, Gennady. Good session.
Very good. Thanks for having me. Okay. Bye-bye.